Yes. And building up that mentality in yourself is just as important as holding your buddies to that standard as well. And that is a very different dynamic than most civilian worlds. Most civilians, you're not able to walk up to somebody random and be like, hey, you're doing that wrong. You're doing that wrong. If you did it like this, you'd do it better. And you'll probably get hit in the regular civilian world because people don't like being told what to do. But in the military, it's a different dynamic. You can go up to anybody who is even higher ranked than you, and if you see something obviously wrong with them, and be like, "Hey, Sergeant, just want to pick you up. You have a string that's hanging off your uniform." It'll be like, "Oh, thank you, private or specialist or whatever." You know, if you have that, if you're helping them pick them up and not trying to knock them down or try to be like, "I'm standing over you now, Sergeant. Oh, you're all messed up." Then as long as you're not like pointing a finger at them, they'll accept that kind of help, generally speaking, not with a smile and "thanks, guy," but be like, right, okay, you know. But you can at least police the world around you in a way, and so to speak. It's in a way that's a military term, and they say go pick up stuff in a field. It's go police that field, right?
So back to when you went into inpatient, what did they focus on?
So they focused on coping mechanisms. They focused heavily on CBT,
which is cognitive behavioral
therapy, exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy is
finish what they focused on, and then we'll get back to like what that was like.
Okay, and there were some, I forget what they were called, but there were some devices that they gave that measured your circadian rhythms, that measured your sleep cycles, your RMS sleep
EMDR?
cycles. I think so, yeah. And they would give those out, and that would start to fill up data.
For trauma.
Yeah, that would start to fill up data that the counselors could then use.
That could be neurofeedback as well.
Yeah. There was some of that going around where some people were getting it and some people weren't.
It's all individualized.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and so it was very free to be like, to the other people in the place. "Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, that's cool, man. Good for you." You know, there was a lot of positivity. I mean, there was also some negativity. Not everybody is going in there with the friendly mindset. Not everybody is happy to be there. Not everybody is like, I need to be there. A lot of them, well, it's voluntary, but they resent it. A lot of times people don't like going in and changing the things that, even if they know that they're wrong, if they know that they're messed up, if they know that they've got a serious problem, that doesn't mean that they're prepared to deal with it. And
I wouldn't call it messed up, but
I use that term colloquially.
Affected by a trauma and having side effects, maybe, or triggers, or massive physical and mental and emotional side effects, and that can be treated and identified and coped with, and having positive coping skills can work with that.
Yes.
So what was the exposure therapy like?
So the exposure therapy was in
my head I was thinking like popping balloons or loud noises, or for you, what was that like?
No, it was really just having a closed door counseling session in a group of a hand-selected group of people who the counselors all knew could understand everybody's story. So they had already done the work of knowing everybody's story individually and then putting them together into a group so that we could all commiserate with each other, and they knew that we would have a connection somewhere in our stories. So then we would just go and allow the person to go into a deep dive, a full explanation, completely allowing themselves to be in that moment, and nobody else in the group would interrupt them or stop them from saying anything, and they would just say what had happened to them. And there was a lot of times we had to do this many times. So you would get familiar with people's stories because they would tell them over and over again.
The more that you share the story, the easier it gets to recall it and to think about it, and that's the part of the therapy. Exposure can't be just like one time. It's getting used to it, reused to it, where it's not a trauma so much.
Yes, and that's
when exposed to it.
Yes.
Exposure to it.
Yeah.
Kind of all common sense when you put it all together, kind of psychology.
Yeah.
No wonder I passed. No, I'm just kidding. No, but so that's pretty traumatic to come back and try to reprogram your mind and your thinking and everything after being trained to think a certain way so that you could survive.
Yeah.
And then having to unprogram.
Yes. A lot of times it felt directly contradictory, where it's like, I know I'm doing the wrong thing now, but it's actually the right thing that I never looked at, you know? But when you first run up on it in yourself, you kind of have that reaction where it's like, that can't be me, really, is it? But, I mean, they kind of apply, but okay, they apply. You go through that process in a way. I think everybody does, or at least most of the people who were at the VOA clinic had at least some moments like that, you know?
And there's a lot of coping skills and triggers to recognize, but right now we have to take a break. And we'll be back with Moments of Clarity in just a moment. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. We welcome your input at 866-826-1340. Tiffany will be right back after this.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hi, this is Tiffany Werner, your host of Moments of Clarity. Living with a mental health disorder is not easy. If you or someone you know are struggling with this, please know it's so important to seek treatment, and I'm here to help. Please visit the website at momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com to view blog posts and resources on this site to help educate and inspire you to take action, because there's no shame in seeking help for mental health. While you're there, please take a few seconds to sign up for my email list. You'll get some extremely valuable educational and entertaining content that can be sent right to your inbox each week. Plus, you'll also get instant and free access to my guide on managing your anxiety. You can also follow me on Twitter at MOC with Tiffany and at Facebook at Tiffany Werner. And once again, the website is momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com. Thank you so much for your support and for listening to your show, because change can only come when we stand together as one.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
We are back to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. To join in the discussion, call 866-826-1340. Now, here's Tiffany Werner.
Hi, we're back, and thanks for waiting. And if you're just tuning in, this is Moments of Clarity. My name is Tiffany Werner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. And today we are discussing post-traumatic stress, especially post-combat. And with me is a former Army veteran, Airborne Infantry veteran, who fought in combat about 10 years ago and went through treatment for post-traumatic stress and some of the coping skills that worked. And welcome back, Sean Martin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And so, kind of left off with what was exposure therapy and all that. Could have been really traumatizing for people to relive right after combat, and
it was
having to cope with that. A lot of people would run and escape and not want to deal with it right away. How long did it take you before you entered therapy?
Oh.
And before you answer that, I want to welcome callers to call in 866-826-1340. If you have any stories to share, comments, support, questions, 866-826-1340.
So
how long did it take you to go into treatment to the VOA?
Oh, right. Let's see. I went in 2012, and I got out of the military at the end of 2007. So about 5 years. And during that time, there was a whole lot of denial, and there was a whole lot of trying to cover it up.
Drinking,
yeah. I mean, there was a time when I went to the VA and was like, VA, give me the pills. You know, show me what you got for me. That now is the time to throw down. I want to see that wonderful health care that all the rest of, the country is paying for. And I was thoroughly disappointed with what they had available to me. And the pills weren't a right fit, or they would make me feel terrible, or make me feel like a zombie, or take away all my drive and desire to accomplish things for my life. And there was this real imbalance. And I wasn't able to find that balance until even a year after I left the VOA. Because even though I learned the coping skills, I still had to put them into action in the real world. Once you stepped out of that clinical trial, in a way, you have to be able to take it out into the market, and the market is ruthless. The market does the regular world doesn't care if you're up to speed or not. You have to be able to use a Metallica phrase. You have to be able to ride that lightning, bro. You know, you have to be able to live in the moment to really be able to appreciate life. And going through all those coping skills was something that at the beginning I was unprepared for. But when I was finally able to go through all of this stuff and be able to keep it all in my brain for longer than 15 minutes, and really be able to analyze it with other people and have other people tell me, you know, you don't need to be so hard on yourself about these things, or you know, you weren't at fault for this. Were very important. Were very important aspects, because those were the things that were keeping me back from being able to enjoy regular stuff. You know, there were
a lot of shame and guilt.
Shame and guilt, yeah, and there was definitely an aspect of
second guessing yourself. Yeah,
there's definitely an aspect of moral injury as well. But there was also a what's the word? A neurological or neuro. Well, like what's the word? I'm losing it. I'm totally losing my mind again.
We'll get back to it.
Yeah, but there's an aspect to it where your nervous system is pushed to its max and it doesn't respond to things normally, and so there was a
like an adverse.
Yeah, there was a time where I could feel that I was nervous, but I could still be cognizant enough to know that there wasn't anything stressful going on. Mm-hmm. Where there was no reason, no stimuli to make me nervous.
But you're feeling the physical effects as if you
couldn't stand still.
You're supposed to be nervous.
Yeah, I needed to get out of wherever I was. There was fear and anger, and all these things came back and manifested themselves in many different ways. And
it's got to be terrifying.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because at that point you get pushed to that point again of fight or flight, and you have to make that choice. And the problem is fight or flight doesn't work for any of the situation that you're in, because it's a normal situation. Yeah. So in this way, you have to choose freeze, which is antithetical to what you've been taught. You're taught to not freeze. You're taught to run into that bullet if you have to. So as well, you have to fight these things that are antithetical to what you've been taught in the military, and that's very, very difficult. And I know lots of people who were there with me in the VOA who still struggle with these kinds of things, that still have a problem with managing all this stuff, because it's not easy, you know. And there's not a lot of people who can tell you how to do it. You know, the amount of people who've been through combat in America, they say, is about 1% of the population, and then the infantry veterans are 1% of that 1%. So you have a small...
So an extra thank you.
Thanks.
1% of the population that actually go and see combat, but the damage that the resources that are available post combat are in my opinion, they aren't enough.
Yeah, they're considerable. They are there, but it does not seem to be enough. There is still too many people who are falling between the cracks. Mm-hmm. I still have friends that killed themselves after we went through the VOA, because they still couldn't find the way, what they needed to make their life have purpose. And it's so sad, because everybody else around them could see it, but they couldn't. And that as well was one of the many moments where you have to say, you know, to yourself that I did everything that I could about this, and I know that I did the right thing, and it's not my fault that he decided to make a bad decision, you know. And that's a really tough conclusion to come to, But it's unfortunately a shared reality, you know?
And then there's survivor guilt.
Yes.
As a result.
Yeah. And that comes through too. Yeah.
And